I was in the middle of folding a load of laundry when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I almost didn't look at it. I was in that comfortable Saturday morning rhythm. Coffee half drunk, the news on low, sunlight coming through the window over the sink, the way it only does in October. And I didn't want to break it. But I looked. The text was from my son-in-law, not my daughter, her husband. "Hey, Sylvia." And then I stopped, because that was wrong. He never called me Sylvia. In 14 years, he had called me Mom, or nothing at all. "Hey, Sylvia, just so you know, we're doing Christmas dinner at your place this year. 32 people. Brenda already called the cousins. It's happening December 25th. We figured you'd want to know." I read it twice. Then I set the phone face down on the dryer and stood there looking at the wall. I want you to understand something. I have been hosting Christmas dinner since 1987. I have cooked for 12 people and I have cooked for 26. I have done it with a broken wrist, with a chest cold, the year my mother was in the hospital, and I drove 40 minutes each way to visit her, and still came home and made the green bean casserole from scratch. I know how to do it. That's not the point. The point is that nobody asked me. I picked the phone back up and typed, "When did I agree to this?" He replied in under a minute, "It's your house. Where else would we do it? Brenda's already told everyone." And there it was. The thing I've been turning over in my mind for 2 years, finally said out loud by the one person in the family with enough nerve to say it, even if he didn't realize what he was saying. "It's your house." As if the house was the whole point. As if I was just a feature of it. Like the oven. I typed back, "I'll need to think about that." He did not respond. My name is Sylvia, but my friends call me Syl, and I am 63 years old. I spent 31 years as a paralegal for a small estate planning firm in Columbus, Ohio, and I retired 2 years ago with a pension, a paid-off house, and a very thorough understanding of what it means when someone suddenly takes interest in what you own. I have seen it from the other side of the desk. I have watched families unravel over dining room tables and lake houses and savings accounts. I know exactly how it starts. It starts with assumptions. My daughter Brenda is 41. She's smart, she's capable, and when she was young, she had this way of tilting her head to one side when she wanted something. Patient and quiet, waiting you out. She got it from her father, God rest him. Gerald died 9 years ago, and after that, it was just the two of us for a while. Close. Closer than we'd been when she was a teenager, and everything I said was wrong. We talked on the phone every Sunday. She brought the grandchildren over for dinner, most Friday nights. I thought we understood each other. Her husband's name is Dex. Short for Dexter, though nobody calls him that except his mother. Dex is 44, works in commercial real estate, and has a talent for making every room feel slightly smaller than it actually is. He's not a bad person. I've told myself that many times. He's just a person who believes that the path of least resistance runs straight through other people's time and goodwill, and has never been given a reason to think otherwise. They have 2 children. My grandchildren, Poppy, who is 9, and her brother Jasper, who just turned 6. Those 2 are the whole reason I've kept my mouth shut as long as I have. Let me back up. 3 years ago, Brenda and Dex went through what I can only describe as a financial crisis of their own making. Dex had invested a significant amount of money. Their savings. I later understood, though Brenda only told me this in pieces, in a commercial development deal that went sideways. They weren't destitute, but they were stretched. The lease on their rental was ending. They needed somewhere to land. Brenda asked if they could stay with me for a few months while they figured things out. Of course I said yes. They were my daughter, my son-in-law, my grandchildren. Poppy was 6 years old and Jasper was barely 3. I moved my sewing room into the basement, gave them the upstairs bedrooms, and told them we'd figure out the timeline as we went. That was 3 years ago. They are still here, now. Before you say anything, I know. I know how that sounds. And I want to be fair, because the truth is more complicated than it looks from the outside. Dex did get back on his feet eventually. He's working again. They're not struggling the way they were. But the months turned into a year, and the year turned into 2. And somewhere in that time, we're so grateful, we'll be out of your hair soon, became just the way things were. Nobody said it out loud. We just all started acting like it was permanent. I tried a few times to have the conversation. Once over dinner, about 18 months in, I mentioned gently that I'd been thinking about the long term, about what made sense for everyone. Brenda looked at me across the table and said, "Mom, are you asking us to leave?" in a voice that made Poppy look up from her plate. And I said, "No, of course not. I just wanted us to talk." And somehow, by the end of the conversation, I was the one apologizing. That's a skill she has. I've noticed it more lately. After that, I stopped bringing it up. I told myself it was fine. The grandchildren were right down the hall. I could hear Jasper's little feet on the floor in the morning. Poppy would come sit on the end of my bed on Saturday mornings and tell me about her week. It wasn't nothing, but it was also my house. My name on the deed, my property taxes, my utilities. Though Dex did occasionally contribute to those, irregularly, in amounts that seemed calculated to be just enough to prevent a direct conversation about it. And I watched, over those 3 years, as things shifted. Subtle things. The way Dex started referring to our house when he was on the phone with someone. The way Brenda rearranged the living room furniture without asking me, and then seemed genuinely confused when I mentioned it. The way they started making plans, home improvement plans, holiday plans, school pickup plans that centered on this house and assumed my participation without checking whether I was available or willing or simply wanted to be left alone for an afternoon. I am not a woman who needs a lot. I was married for 28 years to a man who was my best friend, and when he died, I learned how to be alone in a way that felt okay. More than okay, eventually. I have my book club. I have my sister Rhonda in Dayton who calls me too often and means well. I have a garden in the backyard that I've been tending for 15 years, and in the fall it still surprises me. I have enough. What I do not have, apparently, is the right to spend Christmas morning in my own kitchen without 32 people arriving at noon. I didn't sleep well that Saturday night. I lay there in the dark, turning the text message over in my head like a stone, examining it from different angles. "It's your house." Brenda's already told everyone. The thing that kept snagging me wasn't even the Christmas dinner. It was the certainty of it, the absence of a question mark anywhere in that message. The assumption, not even an assumption, a declaration, that my house and my time and my kitchen were simply available as they had always been, as they would always be, because that was the arrangement and I had never said otherwise. I thought about all the other times I hadn't said otherwise. Sunday morning, I made myself breakfast, sat at the kitchen table with my second cup of coffee, and opened the Notepad app on my phone. I made a list. Not a dramatic list. Not a grievances list. Just a practical list of facts, the way I used to organize case notes at work. What I wanted. What was actually happening. What I was willing to do about it. I sat with that list for a long time. Brenda came downstairs around 10. She poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter and said, "Did Dex text you about Christmas?" "He did," I said. She nodded. "In that way, she has. That means she's already moved past the part where you might have something to say about it." "I was thinking we'd do the usual. Turkey, the ham. I'll take care of the pies." "You'll take care of the pies," I repeated. "And Aunt Ruth Ann is bringing that corn casserole everyone loves, so that's one less thing." I looked at her. She was looking at her phone. "Brenda," I said. "Who are the 32 people?" She looked up. "What?" Dex said 32 people. I'm trying to picture it. Our dining room seats 12. The folding tables in the living room could do another 10 or so, and that's already a stretch. "So I'm wondering where you're planning to put 32 people." She blinked. "We'd figure it out. Set up in the basement, maybe. My basement has my sewing room, the exercise equipment, and approximately 40 years of things I haven't gotten around to sorting through. It is not a dining room." "Mom." She set her coffee down. "It's Christmas. It's one day. It's my house," I said. Quiet. Not mean, just a fact. And I wasn't asked. She did the thing with her face, the slight compression of expression that means I've said something unreasonable. "I'm asking you now." "You're telling me now," I said. "Dex told me 2 days ago. Aunt Ruth Ann apparently already knows. I'm the last person in this conversation. That's not fair." "Which part?" She picked her coffee back up and looked out the window for a moment. When she turned back, Her voice was different, softer, the head tilt. "Mom, you love Christmas. You love having everyone together. You've always done it." "I have," I said, "because I chose to, every year. That's different from having it chosen for me." She didn't say anything. "I'm going to need some time to think about whether I can host this year," I said. "And I'd appreciate it if you didn't make any more calls to cousins until we've actually had that conversation." She left the room. I heard her upstairs, and then I heard the low murmur of her talking to Dex, and then it went quiet. I washed my coffee cup and went out to the garden. The next few days were uncomfortable in the way that things are uncomfortable when a difficult truth has been said out loud for the first time. Nobody was rude to me. But there was a temperature in the house that hadn't been there before, a careful, watchful quality, like everyone was waiting to see what I would do next. What I did was call my sister. Rhonda is 3 years younger than me and has the diplomatic instincts of a golden retriever, which is to say she is enthusiastic and well-meaning and occasionally knocks things over. But she loves me, and she is honest with me in ways that other people aren't, because she's known me my whole life and has nothing to gain or lose by telling me the truth. I told her everything: the text, the conversation in the kitchen, the 3 years, the furniture. She was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then she said, "Sil, do they know about the accounts?" I knew what she meant. 2 years before Gerald died, we had quietly moved the house into a revocable living trust. Gerald had wanted it. He was organized in ways I had always been grateful for, and after 30 years in estate planning, I'd seen too many families fight over things that could have been settled cleanly. The trust named me as trustee. After me, it named Poppy and Jasper as beneficiaries. Not Brenda, not Dex. The grandchildren. Brenda didn't know. I had never told her because at the time it hadn't seemed necessary, and after Gerald died, there had been so many other conversations. Then she moved in, and I kept meaning to say something, and somehow I never did. "No," I said. Rhonda was quiet again. "Then they're operating under an assumption." "Several," I said. "Sil." She paused. "I think you know what you need to do." I did know. I had known since Saturday night, lying in the dark with that text message turning in my head. But knowing and doing are different things when the people involved are your daughter and the father of your grandchildren and the children themselves who have done nothing wrong and have only ever known this house as home. I went to see my attorney the following Tuesday. Her name is Edna, and she has been my attorney for 15 years, and she is the kind of woman who doesn't waste words. I laid out the situation. She asked a few questions. She pulled up the trust documents on her screen, and we went through them together. "Everything looks exactly as you intended," she said. "The house is the trust. You are the trustee. Your grandchildren are the named beneficiaries. No one else has any legal claim. And if I wanted to make that clearer," I said slowly, "is there anything I should be doing?" She looked at me over her glasses. "Are you anticipating a challenge?" I thought about Dex referring to our house on the phone. I thought about Brenda rearranging the furniture. I thought about 32 people arriving at noon on Christmas Day because someone had already told everyone. "I'm anticipating an assumption," I said. Edna nodded once. "Then document," she said. "Everything relevant. Keep copies of the trust somewhere they can be easily accessed. And if there's a conversation you've been avoiding." She paused. "Have it." I thanked her and drove home. That evening, I asked Brenda if she and Dex could sit down with me after the kids were in bed. She said sure, in a voice that told me she'd been expecting this. We sat at the kitchen table. I'd made tea. I didn't need anything to hold in my hands, but I wanted something to do with them, so I held the mug. I told them about the trust. I explained it clearly, the way I'd explain anything complex to someone who didn't work in my field. What a revocable living trust is, what it means, who is named in it, and why. I told them that Gerald and I had made this decision together years before he died, and that it reflected both of our wishes for what would happen to the house after I was gone. I told them that Poppy and Jasper were the beneficiaries because we wanted to give our grandchildren a foundation. I told them that this had nothing to do with my feelings about Brenda or Dex as people. Brenda didn't say anything for a long time. She looked at the table. Her hands were wrapped around her own mug, and she wasn't drinking from it. Dex said, "So we've been living here for 3 years and you never mentioned this?" "No," I said. "I didn't." "Don't you think that's something we had a right to know?" I thought about that. "You had a right to know what you were living in," I said, "which is my home, which I own, which you were welcome in as family. The details of my estate planning are mine to share when and how I choose. I'm sharing them now." "Because we asked about Christmas," he said. "Because it was time," I said. Another long silence. Brenda looked up. Her eyes were wet. Not crying. Close to it, but not quite. "Mom, did you think we were trying to take the house from you?" I looked at my daughter. I thought about all the ways I could answer that. I thought about being fair. I thought about the text message. I thought about the furniture. "I think," I said carefully, "that we've all been avoiding a conversation for a long time. About what this arrangement is, about what the plan is, about what the house means to each of us and what it doesn't mean." I paused. "I think we should have had this conversation 2 years ago, and I'm sorry I didn't push for it sooner, but I'm pushing for it now." Brenda wiped her eye with the back of her hand. Dex was very still. "I love you," I said. "Both of you. I love having my grandchildren in this house. I would not trade these 3 years for anything." Watching Jasper learn to walk in this hallway, watching Poppy read her first chapter book on that couch. Those things are real. They matter to me. But I'm 63 years old, and this is my home, and I need to know that we all understand that. Dex cleared his throat. "What are you saying? You want us to move out?" "I'm saying I want us to talk about what makes sense," I said. "Not tonight. Over the next few weeks, honestly and clearly, without assumptions." He nodded, barely, but he nodded. Brenda reached across the table and put her hand over mine. She didn't say anything. I covered her hand with my other hand. We sat like that for a while. In the days that followed, things were different in the house. Quieter, but not cold. More careful, in the way that people are careful with each other when they've remembered that care is required. Dex stopped saying, "our house." Maybe he didn't notice he'd stopped. I didn't mention it. About a week after our conversation, Brenda came to find me in the garden. I was putting the beds to rest for winter, cutting back the last of the perennials, and she crouched down next to me in a way she hadn't done since she was a child helping me weed. "I talked to Dex," she said. "We want to start looking at places in the spring. Seriously. Not oh, we should think about it. Actually looking." I kept my hands in the dirt. "Okay," I said. "I don't want you to think it's because of, I don't want it to feel like you pushed us out." "I didn't push you out," I said. "I had a conversation." She was quiet. "Brenda." I sat back on my heels and looked at her. "I want you to have your own home. Not because I don't love having you here, because you deserve a place that's yours, that you get to make decisions in, that nobody else can arrange without asking you." She looked at me for a moment, and then she laughed, a small surprised sound like something had landed. "Okay," she said. "Yeah, now," I said, handing her a pair of garden gloves. "Help me with these hostas." She did. The Christmas question resolved itself quietly. Brenda called Aunt Ruth Ann and a few of the cousins and explained that this year we'd be doing something smaller, just immediate family. I don't know exactly what she said. She didn't tell me, and I didn't ask. But the calls got made, and the plans changed, and on Christmas morning, I woke up to Jasper's feet on the hallway floor and Poppy knocking on my door with her hair wild and her eyes bright, and I made pancakes for 7 people, and it was exactly what I wanted it to be. In January, Brenda and Dex made an appointment with a real estate agent. I didn't say anything when she told me. I just nodded and said, "Let me know what you see." She sent me listings that week. Some of them were too small, some in the wrong school district. I gave her my honest opinion on everyone, because she asked for it, and because that is what I am there for. Not to host dinners I wasn't consulted about, not to be a fixture in my own kitchen, but to be her mother. To tell her when a house has a bad layout, to notice that the one on Clearwater Lane has gorgeous light in the kitchen and enough yard for Jasper to run. That's the one they put an offer on. In March, they got it. I sat in my kitchen the evening after Brenda called to tell me, and I had 1 glass of wine, and I thought about Gerald, about the conversations we'd had when Brenda was young, about what we hoped for her, about what it meant to raise a person who could eventually leave and build something of her own. We'd wanted that. Both of us. It's what parents are supposed to want. I thought about how easy it is to let things drift, to mistake proximity for closeness, to let assumptions accumulate until they feel like facts, to avoid the uncomfortable conversation one more time. Because the kids are at the table, and it isn't the right moment, and there will always be another moment. There won't always be another moment. I know that. Gerald taught me that without meaning to, just by dying on a Tuesday in April when we'd been planning to go to the Smoky Mountains in June. I finished my wine. I washed the glass. I went to bed. On the morning they moved out, I made breakfast for everyone. The whole family, all together one more time in this kitchen that has held so many of our mornings. Jasper ate 2 helpings of scrambled eggs and drew a picture of the new house that looked mostly like a rectangle with a door, and I put it on the refrigerator before they left. Poppy hugged me at the door and held on for a long time. She whispered, "We'll come on Fridays still, right?" "Every Friday," I said. And then they were down the front walk with the last of the boxes, and Dex loaded the truck, and Brenda turned at the end of the driveway and I waved back. I closed the front door and stood in the hallway of my house, quiet and mine and entirely mine, and listened to the sound it made. And it was good.